Something that bothered me the last time I was looking at the GraphQL is that the GraphQL component, when you list those things, the data has some redundancy in it, and I want to see if I can fix that. Part of the problem is we have types for the component, and I wanted the payload to be rather minimal, so I said that the data can be anything. But this sort of fights with the backend storage because the type that we are using to persist the data in the backend goes into jsonb, and that maps to a map as the field. It really wants everything to be a map. If we just did that, we would be consistent and we could bring the data back. So let's make those changes here. Let me close everything. So first, let's change it from the type front end. And so instead of data being anything, we'll always make it an object with a value, and that will satisfy its constraint for being an object. So with that change here, we've probably broken some things. Let's run our server, which will run the linter. So we should see some problems here. This is not related to TypeScript. Maybe it hasn't. Oh, okay, here we go. So this is in the transform. Let's look for the red lines here. So we're going to send back data, which is going to be value, and this. Repeat for this. Repeat for scaling. What else? Close some windows here. Is that it? What about create? When we create, that should be in primitives. Okay, object create primitive, return data. Okay, so here is the what should we call this? This is the value. Okay, so we can just say value. So what else? I think from the front end, that's it. Zero errors. One more check. So what is it? npm JSON. So what are the scripts I have? I have one that is just checking svelte, and one is the tsc watch assets npm run type check. Okay. Front end seems fine. And then that gets sent to channel, space channel. So this thing won't pattern match the same because that's going to go to handle event with the payload. And the payload is slightly different. It's going to go to process event. So let's go over to space server process event, which is going to cast that as a payload. So that is going to go to handle cast. handle cast for an event, which would be this payload, and then this goes into the event stream, which will just be persisted because it doesn't really care. Then it's going to async notify on that and broadcast the event to everyone. So async notify will get rid of, doesn't care about the thing. Event writer also doesn't really care, it's just going to write the event. So this is going to actually persist the event. This thing doesn't care what it is. It just shoves it into the database. This thing does care. So snapshot process, here is the space ID, so we know where we're saving these snapshots. And then we have an event type, and then we have the event. And the event, of course, has all the same things that you persisted. Actually, go back a little, go back. You created this event in space server. You sent the space ID. Type is the message, which is this part. Payload was everything. That's fine. Sequence. Okay, that looks fine. This is still a payload, which just contains value something. So coming down to snapshot. Snapshot is going to receive, okay, you can clear snapshot, you can update a snapshot by processing these events. It'll process each of them with the space ID, event type, and the event. Okay, so here's the first one, entity created. Here's the payload. And we're going to create an entity from this change set. What does that do? It's going to cast ID name. It expects an object. So it's going to cast with component. Oh, for every component. Okay. Yes. What does that do? Okay, so this thing's looking at adders and then data. They put the type in there, and then they also put the data back in there. Okay, so I don't think we need to do this. I don't think we need this anymore. Because what you're getting is type and data. We're just going to cast the type as a string, data is a map of some kind, which it is. So this should be fine. Going back here, go back to the snapshot. Whoops, close the snapshot. Okay, so this will give you a mega change set, and then we just insert that. What about here? Entity transform, you get a list of components, and you will reduce over these components and modify each one. Let's see. From here, and the type is that, and you're just going to update the components part of it, which is where the data is kept, and so that seems fine as well. Entity colored, you're going to get a payload that is, okay, this is different, so you're going to get a payload that is color type in this. Oh yeah, it was not, color is not considered a component. so it's a little bit tricky. Yeah, our we didn't pass it in as a component. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Go back to Snapshot. So entity colored, you will get that, and then you're going to create a new component, and it's going to have the entity ID, type is color, and the data will be value. Color. And on conflict, replace data. Okay, so that's going to be different. Entity deleted, it's just that should be the same. All of that's the same. Now, what about processing it on the way out? So when we want to process it, it's a little better. Space server member disconnected. So I can remember it. Okay, focus up. Where was I? Okay, coming back in the scene manager, the way we parse these things to... Okay, so let's go through, we get an event for entity created. Going through here, final create mesh component is some kind of component. Okay, so component isn't any now. Entity is this, and this is going to be component. It's one of this. That's what it is. Then we're going to do all that, and then we're going to process the... For every component, you're going to set the component. Set component do. Let's look over here. Set component, where component is not one of this. Component is a component. Okay, so then we get component, and type is not in here. Component was... Okay, type is in here, sorry. The data, however, is not. So we're going to need to say that the... Where's this error? These errors aren't even on this thing. So I'm going to say value was the component data value. And then here we're just going to go value. Oh, sorry. Value. 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 And we're going to do the same. I'm going to take this to the top. Argument of type string or number. Okay, never mind. That's fine, I'll put it here. in fact, we can collapse this a little bit. So case position or case scaling or case rotation can all do value is component data value is always going to be an array, so you want to set the mesh dot what was this? Position. Okay, so mesh dot component type. You're going to set and then we don't need these guys. Of course, we can move color to the top. And with color, we'll get final creative material. Color string will be component data value. That'll be the string, and then unknown component, and we'll just give that component. What about animate component? So we can animate component. This is also not just anything, it is a proper component. Something like this, this will be the value. And along here we will set the component type value. Sorry, component type. No, that's fine. From array value. Okay, in more places here. This is if you're coloring it, entity colored, type data. Okay, let's give it a test. Okay, right away we're screwed up. This probably because the data we had stored in there before is corrupted, or it doesn't match the same schema. So let's just go ahead and delete that space. In fact, let me close this. Let's just mix ecto reset. Clean slate. Create a new space. A. Set the slug. So let's create. So pull in Firefox. Build a grid. Let's build a cone. Nice. And if we transform and move this, that still works. Color it. Change the color. It's working good. And we'll delete it. Nice. Okay. Let's save our work.